What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And today I wanted to talk about something that would have been a better idea to make right after the draft, and I wanted to. But things got in the way, and the Chiefs signed Donovan Smith, and that took priority. But I wanted to talk about this because it was a big storyline. It was one of the most talked about things among Chiefs fans leading up until the draft, and then nothing happened, and so now it's just kind of been forgotten about, but I wanted to touch on it and talk about the possibilities, and that is, of course, DeAndre Hopkins and what is going to happen with him. He was, again, a hot topic in Chiefs Kingdom leading up to the draft. There was trade talks surrounding him for months and months, and the Chiefs were one of the main suitors throughout that process. They were mentioned several times as a team that could potentially trade for him. The biggest holdup, however, was always one. Well, actually, I would say there's two big holdups. One was his contract. That was a lot of money to be paying for a guy that's about to be on the wrong side of 30. The Chiefs also didn't really have a plethora of cap space to fit DeAndre Hopkins onto their team, especially leading up to the draft. There were even rumors like a couple days before the draft about the Chiefs being a suitor for DeAndre Hopkins, and it's like, how? They literally don't have the money. They don't have the cap space right now. So they would be having to send over probably more draft compensation just to get the Cardinals to take on most of his salary for next year, and that would have been a lot of money. They probably just would have been better off cutting him. I mean, the Cardinals probably weren't getting enough draft pick compensation even for that to be worth it. Because that was the other holdup, is the draft pick compensation. The Cardinals were originally asking for a second-round pick. We saw a lot of other veterans get traded that are kind of in the same realm as DeAndre Hopkins when you talk about, the caliber of player and then the age. Jalen Ramsey, Brandon Cooks are a couple examples. None of those guys got as high as a second-round pick. They went for like thirds and fifths, and DeAndre Hopkins was probably going to get even less than that. And so the Cardinals were just asking for way more than anyone else was really willing to spend. And that was evident when we crept up to the draft and still no deal was made with any team. There weren't a ton of teams that were really willing to pay much for him, and I think the Cardinals stood firm on their asking price, or there were even teams that just didn't really care for DeAndre Hopkins, didn't want to take on that contract. I know D-Hop had said a couple times that he would rework his deal, but he just wanted to go to a contender, but that's easier said than done when you're talking about as much as DeAndre Hopkins was getting paid. And a lot of the teams that were suitors for DeAndre Hopkins, like Kansas City, like Baltimore, they addressed receiver in the draft. Now, that still doesn't mean they couldn't get DeAndre Hopkins if they really wanted to, but he wasn't getting traded anymore. The draft is over. And so that would have been the best time to trade DeAndre Hopkins, and no one got him. And no one was even willing to trade a day 3 pick for him. So here we are. So now what happens to DeAndre Hopkins? Is he still available? Is he still a possibility for the Kansas City Chiefs? Let's talk about it. As I mentioned a minute ago, a lot of teams that were in the running for DeAndre Hopkins, either addressed receiver or addressed pass catcher in the draft. That doesn't necessarily rule anyone out for DeAndre Hopkins, but it does make the market maybe a little bit weaker. Teams aren't really as desperate as maybe they were before to grab a receiver, so DeAndre Hopkins is less of an option. But I definitely do think the Chiefs are still, I want to say, contender for him, because here's the thing. Here's the reality with DeAndre Hopkins. He's probably not getting traded anymore. At this point, he would be released. And I probably should have mentioned that earlier, because that's one of the biggest changes now in the DeAndre Hopkins saga, is if he goes to a new team, it's probably going to be as a free agent after getting released. He's not getting traded at this point. I feel like I can comfortably say that. And that would actually give him the best chance to end up on the Chiefs, because now, after all of the free agent moves the Chiefs have made and the draft, and they had to sign their draft class, they really do not have the cap space for DeAndre Hopkins. It just would be nearly impossible to fit a deal. The Cardinals would have to be taking on basically his entire contract just for Kansas City to acquire him. But a trade isn't happening, so he would have to get released, which gives the Chiefs the best chance to land him, probably, because the Chiefs seem like a place that DeAndre Hopkins has hinted that he would like to play for. I feel like the other strong contender would be the Buffalo Bills. But if he gets released, that gives him a choice of which team he could go to, and I definitely think the Chiefs would immediately be a front runner. He wants to play for a contender, and then money wouldn't really be an issue because he's still getting paid by Arizona even if he gets cut. So it would probably be, like a minimum deal to sign with whoever wherever he wants to go. So the Chiefs would be a contender for him. And I still think he makes sense for Kansas City because after drafting Rashee Rice in the second round of the NFL draft, it makes the receiver core better, but not a ton better. Rashee Rice might take some time to come along. I'm not going to put that much faith in a rookie to fix this receiver core that has a lot of unknowns, a lot of inconsistency, some injury questions with Tony, Sky, and MVS. There's just a lot of what if. And then even with some of the other guys like Richie James, Justin Watson, Justin Ross, John Ross, those guys are going to be battling it out for the last receiver spots, but I wouldn't expect too much out of any of those guys. So it's not like, there's still a place for a number one receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs is my point, and DeAndre Hopkins could still certainly be that. And also Rashee Rice did say in an interview that a comparison that he's heard for himself or that he asked for himself is DeAndre Hopkins. So I feel like it would be a good learning experience, a good opportunity for Rashee Rice as a rookie to learn under DeAndre Hopkins because they are kind of similar players in a way. I wouldn't give him a DeAndre Hopkins comparison myself, but there are similarities in their game. And so I would really like that move in that aspect of bringing Rashee Rice along. But I think there also is just a need for a number one wide receiver on this team still. Maybe one emerges out of this group from this year, but I don't know, man. The Chiefs have talked up Kadarius Toney. There's injury concerns there, which is why DeAndre Hopkins is also an appealing option. So basically, as far as the odds of DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs, I think if he were to get released, Kansas City makes a lot of sense. I still think the Chiefs would be interested, even though they do kind of have a logjam right now. It's more names than or guys that you're just kind of hoping work out than, like I said, names. They're names. Names of guys you're hoping work out, but we're not totally sure. Meanwhile, DeAndre Hopkins is the sure thing. Now, here's the other thing, though. I think at this point, and we've heard this, reports have come out that Arizona and DeAndre Hopkins are just kind of looking at each other and saying, you know what? Might be best for you to stay. Might be best for me to stay because DeAndre Hopkins, as much as he wanted to play for a contender, he still wants that money that he's getting. He doesn't want to say goodbye to all that money. He knows at this point his best bet of making as much money as possible is staying with Arizona. His demeanor seems to have changed a little bit since, finding out really that he's not going to be traded anymore, that he's kind of okay with it. I kind of get that vibe from him. I know he showed up to the Cardinals facility after the draft was over. And then Arizona, really at this point, it's not like they're going to be contending next year. I think they kind of understand the fact that they're rebuilding a little bit. So I don't think they're like in this huge rush to cut DeAndre Hopkins. It doesn't do a lot for them because they're just going to owe him a lot of money if they cut him. They'll save some, but they're going to owe him a lot too. And I don't know if they're really all that interested in cutting him. They would have been okay getting some draft compensation for him, but now it just doesn't benefit them a ton. So I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins gets released. I think there's a good chance he just stays in Arizona because that's just the way things worked out. And that's a unique scenario, one that you don't see too often, but if you ask me what I think happens with DeAndre Hopkins, I really do think that he spends the 2023 season on the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe at the trade deadline, he could get dealt in this year's regular season after he proves that he's still a really good wide receiver in this league. And then there's a team trying to contend for a Super Bowl like Kansas City. Maybe Kansas City even circles it back around midseason and goes, hey, we still really need a guy that can help us out. We see D-Hop is still balling over there in Arizona. Here's a 4th-round pick. We'll give that to you. We'll take him. So, I don't know. We'll see. I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on that, though, and kind of where we stand with this whole DeAndre Hopkins thing since talk of it just kind of stopped after the draft was over. But hopefully that helps you guys understand a little bit what's happening and what the odds are of him still ending up in Kansas City and what that would even look like. But, yeah, that's all I got for this one, guys. But I want to hear from you in the comments. How likely is it that you think DeAndre Hopkins lands on the Kansas City Chiefs still? Do you want him on the Chiefs still? Let me know down in the comments. But with all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com. And I will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!